Happy Wednesday, maths people. Today we're going to be recognizing that tenths arise from dividing an object into 10 equal parts, or dividing a number into 10 equal parts. Year 4s, we're going to be counting up and down in hundredths. Recognizing the hundredths, you get that by dividing things 100 ways. And we're going to extend that for year 5s into thousandths as well. We're going to have a warm-up. There's going to be an I do bit, a we do bit where we do some stuff together, a you do section where you do your chili challenges, and then a little challenge at the end of each of them. So let's get ourselves warmed up now. I'm setting it to 3 seconds, but pause it as many times as you wish. It's exactly the same style of question that we've done for the last 2 days, so we should be getting faster at these. So there go our answers there. Tick the ones off that you got right if you got some of them. And I hope we're all warmed up. Let's take a look at today's ideas. So, we've got a typical grid here that we recognize with hundreds column and tens column and ones column, but we've just extended it past the decimal point into the tenth column, hundredths column, and thousandths column, right there. So, a number like this, with one bead in the ones column, is just going to be 1. It's just one whole. But if we were to divide that up into 10 equal pieces with a really small knife and chop it up, we'd end up with tenths. And 1/10 would look like this. So dividing a whole thing into 10 equal pieces will reduce it, and one of those pieces will be called 1/10, right there. Equally, if we started off with a number like 2, when we divide it by 10, we'd end up with 2/10. Year 4s, of course, if you start off with a number like 2 and you divide it by 100, there's 2 zeros in 100, so it moves across 2 columns. You'd end up with 200ths, and then you'd have to write that as 0.02. Year 3s, when we started with 1, if you divide 1 by 10, you'd have to write that as 0.1. So tell me, year 5s, if I start off with, let's boost it up to 3, and we divide that by 1,000, yes, you're right, we're going to end up with 3 thousandths, written as 0.003. So let's start off with a more complicated number of 110, so that's a 10 and 2 ones. So we've got 12. When we divide that by 10, we're going to end up with 1.2. But if we start with 12 and we divide it by 100, again there's 2 zeros in 100, so we're going to move everything across 2 spaces, 1, 2 columns over for that, 1, 2 columns over for that, we'll end up with 0.12. What have we started off with? 100 and 121. 121, if we divided it by 1,000 for you year 5s, there's 3 zeros in it, so this one would move across 1, 2, 3 columns. The 10s would move across 3 columns as well. And the hundreds would move across 3 columns. So 121 divided by 1,000 is going to end up with 0.121. Moving that into just numbers themselves, when I divide 1 by 10, just like we said on the chart, when we divide 1 by 10, it's going to move across one column like that. So we're going to have 0.1. So when I write that up, 1 divided by 10 gets me an answer of 0.1. If I divide 1 by 100, let's go back to the column, there's 1. Divide it by 100, there's 2 zeros in 100, so I'm going to budget across one column, 2 columns. 0. Got nothing there, 0, 1. So I'm going to end up with 0.01. If I divide 1 by 1,000, then let's go back to our column. 1, I'm dividing it by 1,000. There's 3 zeros in 1,000, so I'm going to move it 3 columns over. 1, 2, 3. So I end up with 0.0 tenths, 0 hundredths, and 1,000ths. So I'm going to write it like 0.001. There we are. If I have to continue some sequences then, once I've found these tenths, and I went 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, what would come next in this sequence? Shout out your answer now. That's right, it's going up in tenths, so I'd get 4/10 next. If I had to continue this sequence of hundredths, and I started with 43 hundredths, 44 hundredths, 45 hundredths, shout out, what would I get next in the sequence? Yes, 46 hundredths. Well done. So if I went on to the thousandths, 640 thousandths, 641 thousandths, they're going up in thousands. So I guess the next one's going to be, yes, you guessed it, 642 thousandths. And we could count up in steps of that as we went through if you wanted to. So, looking at a 1 chili challenge for today, we end up going up in, I almost gave it away there. What could it be for the first one, A, going up in? I'm not going to tell you, but we've got to fill in the next 2 things, the next 2 fractions that would be in that, okay? And it's the same for all of these. We're going to fill in the next 2 parts of it. Let me see if I can get all of your questions on the screen. F to G, that's it. I'll go a little bit closer just in case it's difficult to see. So there's the first 3. And then there's and we've just got a G as well. So we're looking to fill in the next 2 things that would be in each of those sequences. Our challenge as well today is a sequence right here that goes 1/10, 0.2, 0.3, 3/10, 0.5, 6/10, and it says explain the error. Something's gone wrong in this sequence. If you can spot it, explain what's gone wrong. 2 chili challenge today. First one's been done for you to show what happens here. So we're converting between decimal fractions like this and vulgar fractions written above it and below the line like this. So 0.25 is actually the same as well. You could write it as 25 100ths. So 72 hundredths. How could I write that as a decimal? Those are all the questions down to D. And now I'll show you all the ones down to F. Again, we're looking to see what you're going to write in for the next two terms on E and F. How's the sequence going to carry on? And your challenge today, Ben says 2 hundredths less than 61 hundredths is 0.57. Is Ben correct? 3 chili challenge today. So you need to write out each of these as a fraction. 0.453 we could write as 453 over 1,000. 453 thousandths. That's the secret to doing these. Okay? And then going the other way, can we write each of these as a decimal? Be very careful with 53 thousandths. I put it in there to try and trick you. There's all the questions up until D. And your challenge today, reader says, if you divide 605 by 1,000, you get 605 100ths. Explain Rita's error. So, have a good one. I see you soon for more maths tomorrow.